The thing about tennis is that the sport usually tells you exactly where everyone belongs. That is part of its cruelty. There are no teammates to hide behind, no clock to protect you, no system complicated enough to disguise the truth for very long. Eventually, the rankings harden into reality. The champions separate themselves from the hopefuls. The stars become institutions. The rising players either break through or disappear into the enormous middle class of professional tennis where talent alone is never enough. Which is why what happened around Eala and Aryna Sabalenka in Rome felt so strange. Because it did not feel like the sport following its usual script. It felt like the moment a future storyline quietly introduced itself before anyone involved was fully prepared to admit what it might become. The viral image itself was deceptively simple. One player watching another practice. That is all it was on paper. No confrontation. No argument. No dramatic exchange. Just the world number one standing at the edge of a practice court at the Foro Italico while a 20-year-old Filipina hit balls beneath a sea of Philippine flags. And yet the internet reacted to it like it had uncovered state secrets. Why? Because people are incredibly sensitive to body language when they sense history approaching. They study faces differently when they think they are witnessing the beginning of something important. And what people saw in Sabalenka's expression did not look casual. That is what unsettled everyone. The eyes were too focused, the posture too still, the attention too complete. This was not the absent-minded glance of a top seed walking past a crowded practice court on her way to another obligation. This looked deliberate, intentional, measured, like a champion taking inventory of something she knows she may eventually have to deal with. And that interpretation exploded because of the timing. By May of 2026, the atmosphere surrounding Eala had already begun mutating into something bigger than ordinary tennis hype. The results mattered, of course. You do not climb the rankings without substance. But the energy around her was no longer being driven purely by scorelines. It was emotional now. You could feel it in Rome. The Foro Italico had become something unusual whenever Eala played or practiced. Philippine flags everywhere. OFWs traveling across Europe to watch her for a single afternoon. Chants echoing through practice courts that usually operate in relative quiet compared to the stadiums. And the most important part, the emotion did not feel manufactured. That is the detail people instinctively respond to. Sports audiences are actually very good at detecting authenticity. They know when marketing departments are trying to create a star before the public organically cares. They know when hype is synthetic. The reaction to Eala did not feel synthetic. It felt inherited from somewhere deeper. Everywhere she went, people projected their own stories onto her. Filipinos saw representation. Migrant workers saw sacrifice. Young athletes saw possibility. Parents saw risk and hope intertwined. Even neutral fans seemed drawn to the visible emotional connection between Eala and the crowds following her. And that kind of emotional gravity changes the environment around a player long before trophies fully catch up. Sabalenka almost certainly understood that immediately. Because elite athletes are usually the first people to recognize when someone carries unusual energy. Long before commentators build narratives around a player, the champions notice details the public misses. They notice how cleanly someone strikes the ball under pressure. They notice movement patterns, timing, competitive instincts, the emotional reaction from crowds, the confidence level in practice sessions. Most importantly, they notice whether another player carries fear. And Eala did not look afraid. That matters more than casual fans realize. Young players are supposed to look overwhelmed around dominant champions. Especially at major tournaments. Especially on clay. Especially around established world number ones. There is usually visible deference built into the ecosystem of tennis. But Eala moved through Rome differently. Not arrogantly, not loudly, just without intimidation. That changes how other players look at you. So when Sabalenka stopped walking and watched her, maybe the expression people interpreted as tension was actually something more complicated. Recognition. Recognition is one of the most powerful forces in professional sports because it exists beneath language. Champions recognize potential before they verbally admit it. They recognize resilience before statistics prove it. They recognize belief before ranking points validate it. And perhaps that is why the later social media interaction landed with such force. Because the internet had already decided the story it wanted. The public loves sports rivalries because rivalries simplify complex emotions into something easier to consume. One player rising must mean another player feels threatened. One new star emerging must create insecurity somewhere else. So the Rome photo instantly became evidence of imagined hostility. People zoomed into Sabalenka's expression frame by frame, trying to decode jealousy, resentment, intimidation. And then Sabalenka ruined the entire narrative herself. Not with an interview, not with a press conference, not with a carefully prepared PR statement. With 2 words and a crown emoji. Queen behavior. It is difficult to overstate how much that shifted perception online. Because suddenly the supposed antagonist was openly praising the player she was expected to resent. And the phrasing mattered. Not great player. Not future star. Not nice work. Queen behavior. That is not technical praise. That is symbolic praise. It acknowledged something beyond rankings. It acknowledged presence. And honestly, the deeper you think about it, the more sense it makes coming from Sabalenka specifically. Because Sabalenka herself understands what it feels like to fight your way into legitimacy. People forget that now because dominance rewrites memory. Once athletes become world number ones, fans retroactively act as if greatness was always obvious. It rarely is. Sabalenka spent years battling inconsistency narratives, emotional scrutiny, criticism about her temperament, criticism about her game, criticism about whether she could handle pressure in major moments. She knows exactly what it means to have people doubt whether you truly belong among the elite. So perhaps when she watched Eala in Rome, she did not see an intruder. Perhaps she saw someone walking through the same fire she once had to survive herself. And there is another reason this dynamic fascinated people so much. The contrast between them is almost too perfect from a storytelling perspective. Sabalenka represents force, power tennis, explosive emotion, physical dominance, the certainty of someone who learned to weaponize intensity instead of apologizing for it. Eala represents something entirely different. Fluidity, connection, emotional symbolism, the feeling of collective hope moving through one individual athlete. When those 2 archetypes exist in the same sport at the same time, audiences become obsessed because it creates natural dramatic tension without requiring actual animosity. And women's tennis is entering a fascinating phase because of that. For years, conversations around the WTA often revolved around instability, constant turnover, unpredictability, difficulty building sustained star rivalries after the decline of the Serena era. But suddenly the landscape feels emotionally rich again. Coco Gauff carries enormous cultural weight. Iga Swiatek carries the quiet intensity of a dominant technician. Sabalenka carries charisma and raw force. Eala now carries this rapidly growing emotional mythology. That is how eras become memorable, not just through trophies but through contrasts. And maybe the most revealing part of the entire Rome episode is that Sabalenka never once attempted to diminish Eala publicly. Actually, she kept doing the opposite. She's going to be a problem. That quote matters. Because athletes at Sabalenka's level rarely hand out praise casually. Top players are extremely selective about who they publicly validate. They know their words carry weight. They know every compliment becomes a headline. So when Sabalenka repeatedly acknowledged Eala's game, her crowd connection, her heart, it suggested genuine respect. Not performative politeness. Real respect. And maybe that is why the internet became so emotionally invested in the idea of these 2 eventually meeting in a major tournament. Because the potential matchup feels bigger than tennis already. Sabalenka versus Eala would not just be a battle of rankings. It would feel like a collision between 2 entirely different kinds of stardom. One built through established dominance. The other still actively forming in public view. One already sitting on the throne. The other arriving with crowds loud enough to shake the palace walls. And importantly, the emotional charge would not come from hatred. It would come from mutual awareness. That is much more compelling. The greatest rivalries in sports are not always driven by dislike. Sometimes they are driven by recognition so intense it almost resembles destiny. Two athletes understanding that the other person may ultimately shape part of their own legacy. Maybe that is what people accidentally sensed in that Rome image. Not jealousy, not fear, not hostility. Just a moment where one extraordinary competitor looked across a practice court and recognized another one beginning to arrive. And maybe Sabalenka's queen behavior comment mattered because it quietly confirmed something the tennis world was only starting to realize. Alex Eala was no longer merely asking permission to join the conversation. She already was the conversation.